180, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Phoenix, Arizona on KXXT Family Values Radio. And I also want to welcome our online audience on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I want to give a big shout out to Beyond Fear to Freedom, one of the best Christ-centered fellowships that provide a safe and loving community for women in recovery. Just go out to their website and check it out. Hey, if you're not doing anything Friday night, they have their meeting at 5:30 to 6:15, food, fellowship, and childcare is provided. Then at 6:15, their main message, they split it up between guys and gals. It's pretty cool, to kind of be able to talk about things that you wouldn't want to really talk about in front of other people. And it's a great thing, and I cannot underscore how much I'm totally behind these guys. They're awesome. And listen, go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org and get all their information to become a subscribed tribe member, their Friday night gigs, and some of the personal one-on-ones that you could enjoy if you got the things that you need to settle and help with. They're the people to go get it. Hey, listen, if you want to write me, my email is steve@180uturn.com. That's steve@180youturn.com. I'll answer as many questions as I can. Keep those theological questions off the table. I don't want to really get into that. But today, and I have to say, I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. Today, we have Tracy Kovach. Tracy, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone.
I have to say, Tracy, you have a you have a bombastic testimony. It's out there, and what I really like it is we're going to talk today, especially today, a lot of the things in your childhood. I mean, this is really awful, right? I hate to say it. I know you don't mind me saying it. Tracy and I both share terrible childhoods, but I'm not going to cry about mine after reading yours. So, okay, you know what I mean? I just really underscore. Sometimes in my early days in prison ministry, I wanted to take out all the parents that caused all these problems. I mean, I had a vengeful heart. I had to figure out what the Lord wanted me to do and correct my thing, because I just don't like parents putting their kids behind the 8 ball day one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Well, tell me, Trace, where'd you grow up and how did this all go?
So I grew up first of all, in California. I was born in 1965 in Van Nuys, California. I was the third of 4 boys. So I remember my childhood was a pretty normal childhood early on. So, I had the mom, the dad, and the whole life, and the brothers and all that. And we lived in an apartment, and I remember a normal family. There used to be times back in those days when I remember young stuff. I can remember some stuff like when I was 3 years old. There was a lady used to come over to the house and visit my mom, and she stands out all the time because I hated when she came over. She would come up to me, and she was just an old lady and very mean, and she would dig her nails into my arm right here until sometimes it bled, and she would make me stand in the corner until she left, and she would visit my mother, and I hated it. I knew when she came over, oh man, I'm going into the corner. I would stand there with my nose in the corner the whole time she was there. Sometimes it would be hours. So it was normal childhood, except for that.
What is her problem?
I have no idea what her problem was. I don't know who the lady was. My mom never shared that stuff with me. Later on in life, when I see my mom again, she never shared that with me, or some of the other strange things that used to happen in that house when I was young. I remember there used to be like, for lack of better words, like ghosts in this house.
Physical manifestations.
Physical manifestations, yeah. Things would wake me up. Like one time I got woke up. My mom was in the living room sleeping, and something woke me up, and I seen her in the living room sleeping, and I asked if I could sleep with her in there, and she said, go grab your blanket. And back in those days, remember you had the bed with the springs? And I went to go grab my blanket, and my blanket was stuck on the springs, and I looked at the window, and there was like a outline of head and shoulders shadow getting bigger on the curtain, and I kept pulling, and I ripped the blanket and ran to the living room, and my mom said, I told her about it, and she said, oh, you were just tripping, you're dreaming.
Yeah, well, at that age, we're not tripping yet, but yes.
So I just blew it off as I was dreaming. So
I have to say, I just want to say this one time. I've been down this road myself in another scenario. I don't got time for that today. I just want to encourage you. It might have been a dream. Yeah, it could have been a nightmare. Yeah, but I would check it out. If that comes 2 or 3 times, you might be having a Samuel event. You better check it out to find out the authenticity of it.
Yeah, well, I found out later in life what the real story was about all that. My mom, she shared it with somebody, but we'll get into that later. But so there was another time that my dad snored really loud. So he snores like I snore like he does. So and there was a hallway. At the end of the hallway was a bathroom, and then our bedrooms were on each side of the bathroom, and the light would shine onto my bedroom door. And again, something woke me up, and I see my dad's profile, his shadow, walk onto the door. And I remember calling his name out like 3 or 4 times, and he didn't answer. And then I remembered I heard him snoring loud as day in the bedroom, and I just pulled my covers over my head and went back to sleep. And I told my mother about that, and she said I was just dreaming again. So.
Yeah, I just want to encourage again. It could be a dream, could be a nightmare, but I check it out. I mean, don't let the kid die a whole evening out there going through his mind. Am I freaking out or what? Now, listen, you guys moved then? You moved to Colorado.
We did move to Colorado. 1971 earthquake that hit California. I remember we packed up all our stuff and left, and we went to a little place called Frisco, Colorado, which back in the day was one dirt road and just dirt roads and one police officer in the whole town, and just a little town right next to this mountain called Mount Royal.
But then your first, what I would call serious trauma, mom and dad divorce.
Mom and dad divorced. It was right after we got there. So I remember my dad came home one day with some lady. I didn't know who she was, and I'm just trying to be nice. And I go get her a flower, and I give her a flower, and my mother yelled at me and sent me to my room. Turns out he was there to pick up some of his stuff, so he was leaving with this lady, and he ended up marrying her. So. And then all kinds of things happened at that point.
And then your older brother actually went with him. So now the family is not only divorced, the kids are even split now.
Yeah. So now my oldest brother, my youngest brother, I don't think was born yet. He was coming very soon. But my older brother went with my dad. Yeah.
Now because of this, your mom started drinking, hitting the bars.
Yeah. It's all the time.
I can only say from my own experience that shadows a little bit of yours. You're meeting new men. Seems like every other week or whatever it is. Every day.
Yeah.
It is so gruesome, the destruction of the family at this level and at this age in our lives. I can't believe this actually occurs. It's so bad. But this started happening, and you were talking about these guys are coming up. Some guy is beating your mom up.
Yeah, it seemed like they all beat her up, and I used to get so mad because she wouldn't shut up, and she'd be running her mouth, and I would just be thinking to myself, Mom, just shut up, and then they would slap her around. There was one guy that I pulled a knife on, and I was 6 years old, and I pulled a knife on this guy, and he picked me up by my shirt and held me against the wall and slapped the knife out of my hand, and he put me back down, and I ran to the neighbors and called the police. But she would always send me outside to go play, so I didn't have to see this most of the time. So I was just always out in the forest playing. So
yeah, and just because our sponsor is BFF, Beyond Fear to Freedom, I got to tell you, there is no rationale or logic for you taking a beating from any guy. This is so off the wall, sometimes even demonic, more than just earthly and worldly. I can't believe the gals that have come through this show and have taken beatings after beating, and somehow, some way, you reinterpret it as love. It can never be love. Yeah. It can never be love. Boy, thank God we got saved. I mean, we probably went down the same road as our dads did. Okay. Now, we were talking about that. You're not socially awkward now. You seem to be pretty hip. You're pretty man of the world. You've got your feet on the society. But back then, you said you were kind of awkward.
I was very socially awkward. In school, I couldn't pay attention to school. The kids always teased me, and they used to beat up on me all the time. And just, I don't know what it was. I was just very socially awkward. And I didn't focus on my schoolwork. And I remember my mother took me to the doctor to get an evaluation, and they said I needed Ritalin. So they put me on Ritalin.
Man, I can't believe how our stories parallel. I mean, I was on it at 10. We were the experiment in lab.
Right. Well, back then it was like, oh, your kid's got just hyperactive. So here's some Ritalin. So yeah, let's give him some meth.
I always laugh. I say I need, especially when I got into music, I was like, hey, I don't want to do any downers. That's the last thing I want to do. Okay, so you and your brother were hanging together, and you started to kind of do what I would call the early adolescent petty theft scene. Candy bars here and there, stores. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, there was one store in the whole town, and it was a department store, and we used to go there and fill our pants full of candy bars. And the guy in the store, the owner of the store, knew, and we'd go out of there crumbling. With all these candy bars, and he would chase us out of the store, and we'd run with all the candy. Then he would call my mom, and he would make her pay for it, and she would put us on restriction for 2 weeks in our bedroom. And then it started going above and beyond that. So one day it was snowing, and we're in Frisco, Colorado, up in the Rockies. So it would be 10 feet of snow sometimes. And I remember there was a Mustang, Ford Mustang behind this gas station, had the keys in it. And my brother and I had this bright idea that we were going to just steal this car and take it to our mother. But we couldn't get out of the driveway with it because all the ice. We were throwing boards under the tires. He would be trying to get it. I would be throwing boards under the tires, and we just couldn't get it out of there. And the owner of the gas station came out and caught us and chased us out of there, and then told our mom we got put on restriction again. So.
Yeah, but you're stealing a car, and you only got put on restriction by your mom. So
yeah,
it's pretty light. So a little slap on the finger.
Far, yeah.
Okay, now, but I also see in your resume. I mean, when you get into thievery, you guys, hey, I took candy bars. Well, as a kid, I get that. You stole other things. But then all of a sudden, I stole a horse.
I stole a horse.
Wow.
Yes, I did.
We come back from the break. We're going to continue more in Tracy's unbelievable story, which is shockingly somewhat similar to my own. I'm letting you know that if you got issues from your childhood, God can fix those things. He can go back into the past and make right what was made terrible for you. He can fix it, mend it. Listen, if guys like us can make it, anybody can make it. I really exhort you, listen, if you're not doing anything, Friday night, BFF at 5:30 to 6:15. Childcare is provided, good food, and fellowship at 6:15 for men and gals. When we come back from the break, we're going to continue more with Tracy's unbelievable story right after this break. Is your phone off? Okay. Doing okay?
Yeah.
Fast pace. Okay.
You know the road to recovery can be difficult, but you don't have to travel it alone. Every Friday night, like-minded women gather together to share a meal and their stories how they broke the destructive cycles in their lives by the power of God and moved on to a new life in Christ. For more information about Friday nights, just go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. If you can't get to BFF on Friday nights, or you don't live in the Phoenix area, you can stay connected by joining BFF's Subscribe Tribe, where you'll receive their weekly study guide, so you can track with them online. Just sign up today on BFF's website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. And don't forget to listen to BFF's weekly video podcast with Debbie G and Sheridan. Their own life experiences and their biblical influence will overhaul your thinking, your identity, and your future. They'll keep you encouraged with some great insight and biblical truth. Just friend them on Facebook or go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. BFF, where you might just discover a best friend forever.
Well, welcome back to 180 U-Turn. I'm Steve Savant, and we're talking to Tracy Kovach. We're having a story here and a little bit of, it's funny when you get guys like us, I don't want to get into a show of commiseration on everything we actually parallel with, but it sounds like a lot. I want to go back, it's not enough to try to steal the Mustang. Now you want to steal a Mustang. It's a horse.
Yeah, a horse, yeah. So I was walking off in the forest one day, and I came across a barn, and there was a horse in this field, and it had this really long rope on it, and I just thought, I just want that horse. So I grabbed the horse and had a really long rope on it, and I remember I was going to take that to my mom. So I don't know why I was always taking everything to my mom. Maybe I thought she needed it or something. But
she could sell it off for cash.
Right. So I'm walking down the road, and it's dirt roads, and then there was patches of grass. So I would walk down the road with this horse, and the rope was really long, and it was a very big horse, to me it was very big. And I remember it would stop at a patch of grass, and I would pull on the rope, and it would be eaten, and it would look up at me and charge me. And I would run to the next patch of grass, and it would stop and start eating. And we did that all the way down the street until the police pulled up with my mother, the only police in the whole town. And he asked me, where'd you get the horse? I'm like, well, there was some dead people up on top of this barn, and I saved the horse. It was caught in barbed wire. I gave him this whole story about this dead people in a barn. So what he actually did was he took me back to the barn. And there was a ladder that went up to the top of the barn. I told him they were up there. They're dead. I was saving this horse from doom. And so he actually had me in front of him and was behind me going up the ladder. And he had his gun drawn. And when we got to the top of the ladder, and he drew his gun like this, and I looked, and they were gone. And I screamed, they're gone. And I ran down the ladder and took off out of the barn. So he took me to the police station and fingerprinted me at that time.
So in your mind as a young man, there is no thou shalt not steal.
Yeah, apparently not, yeah.
And I mean, when everything becomes an item of eminent domain,
Yeah.
Your mom let you stay with a neighbor. She was going to go out for the weekend.
She was.
And this is the tragedy. She never came back.
She did not. That? So she kept drinking all the way through all of this, and another year had passed, and she was still drinking, bringing home all these men. And one day she came to me and said, hey, I'm going to go to Texas and marry this guy. And this was one of the guys that used to beat her up. And, she said, I'm going to go to Texas and marry this guy. You want to come with me? You can either come with me or stay with the neighbors. Well, the neighbor was a mother and 4 daughters, ranging from the age of, I think it was 5 to 22 years old. There was a 5-year-old, 16-year-old, 21-year-old, and 22-year-old.
And how old were you?
I was 7, I believe, at the time. So she asked me if I wanted to stay with the neighbors or go with her, and I didn't want to see her get beat up. I didn't want to see her marry this guy, and I told her I'll stay with the neighbor. So I stayed with the neighbor, and she just never came back. So
now your neighbor got a foster license so she could legally take care of you and maybe even get paid to supplement her income, right?
She did. That was the whole reason that she even got a foster parent license, so she could get paid.
But did you ever see this gal be abusive to her own kids?
I never seen her be abusive to her own kids,
But
no.
she was abusive to you.
Very much, yeah.
So you just got parked. You just left one bad situation into another one.
Right. So she actually put a mattress in a storeroom. She cleared out a little corner and put a mattress in there, and that's where I stayed. Sometimes she would lock me in there. I remember she would always, the 16-year-old, she was like, she tried to be my friend all the time, and she would run in because the mother used to beat me with stuff all the time, and she would run in and hand me books or just hand me stuff to put in my pants if her mom was, because her mom was coming to beat me up, and so I'd pretend like she's beating me. A couple times she punched me in the mouth, knocked my head into the wall one time, and then she would lock me back into the room. My dad, this went on probably from the time I was just about 8 years old until I was about 10 or 11. And then I used to always talk to the one gas station. There was one gas station, same gas station I tried to steal the car from. The owner of that gas station knew my dad, knew my mom, and I would talk to him all the time. What I didn't know was he was communicating with my dad the whole time. My dad lived in San Francisco, and I hadn't seen my dad since he left when I was 5. But apparently they were talking to each other, and he had contacted the welfare and wanted me to come to San Francisco on a pass, like a 2-week pass from her. So all I knew was I was going to San Francisco to visit him, and then when I got there, he was like, "Yeah, nope, you're not going back." So I just stayed with him, and he was even more abusive.
So there, it's from the into the pot into the frying pan. I mean, there's no let up. How old are you at this time when you go with your dad?
I was about I want to say 10 or 11.
But by the time in between the time you were with your neighbor, she tried to get you to become a Mormon. Apparently, get baptized as a Mormon.
Well, I did get baptized as a Mormon. Yeah.
Well, if they're right, you're in.
Yeah.
Okay, just like
Well, I think about it now, and I don't look at it as I was baptized as a Mormon. I was baptized, and I was baptized with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is when they baptized me. So, and I can talk about the things that happened in my life when I could see now that when I gave my life to the Lord, the things, how God protected me. So I don't know. So when I get there, I'll ask Jesus what.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a line for interviews up there just to clear up a lot of mysterious stuff here. But your dad was abusive as well, and he made you work, man. I mean, you had to go out and do paper routes, and I mean, you're just generating activity and income, just trying to keep you off the streets.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd do all the paper routes in town. So I'd get up probably about, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we had many paper routes. So I'd have to go out with the paper bag on, and I would just be walking the streets 2 o'clock in the morning in San Francisco, delivering papers all the way until the sun came up. So
and then after that, you moved to Federal Way, Washington, right?
We did. So we ended up leaving San Francisco. We moved to Federal Way, Washington. I don't remember what year that was or how old I was. I think I had to have been probably, I want to say 13 maybe. So we got to Federal Way, and then my older brother, who left with my mother, he ended up coming back. My mom came to visit us when we were in Federal Way, and my older brother, not my oldest brother, my oldest brother lived with us with our stepbrother, and my older brother came back, and now he was smoking pot, and he was like this cool kid that smoking pot, and he knew how to ride motorcycles, and he used to go to the neighbor's house all the time over there where we lived and smoke pot. And I remember him and my dad getting arguments about that, and I was like, I want to be cool like that.
Exactly. What a role model.
Yeah. So then we had all the paper routes in Federal Way, which the Seattle Times on Sunday is like that fat. So it was a lot. So
A lot to do, but it kind of helped. You got a little income, got a little work ethic.
no, I never got seen any of the money. All the money went to my dad, so I never knew any part of the money situation. But
I often wonder how you can come out of a childhood like the one you're describing, Trace, which is god-awful, to be very frank. And what is the deal? Why doesn't anybody care for me, love for me?
Right.
I mean, and then they wonder why guys like you, us, me, we turn out the way we turn out. I mean, I don't get that. You expect different results, So the abuse continued with your dad, and you're not even getting the money, right?
No.
But then you moved to Grand Junction, Colorado.
Yeah, well, before that, when we were still in Seattle, in Federal Way, there was a time that I really started to realize that my dad didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
I was had my feet dangling off the back of a station wagon. I was late delivering papers, so he told me get in the car and throw them from the back of the station wagon. We were in a Sears parking lot, and all I remember is I had my feet dangling, and I heard tire screech. And when I turned to look, a car hit us right in the side of the station wagon, and I flew in the air. I don't know how many times I flipped in the air, and I landed right on my head. I couldn't stand up, and I remember my dad arguing with this lady in the parking lot of this store, and I tried crawling to my dad, and I tried crawling up his leg because I couldn't stand up, and he slapped me off of him and told me to get back in the car. And I crawled to the car and got in, and we left, and he made me deliver the rest of the newspapers. And that was, at that time, I was just thinking, now this is just getting ridiculous. I was really starting to believe that nobody cared or loved me. So
yeah, and I'm a conservative, and I believe you own your stuff. You go to jail and prison, it's your baby. You it's your obligation. You need to have the onus.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff that nobody knows.
Yeah.
That's the underpinning of all this stuff. And when you go to prisons and jails like I have done in the last 16 years, and you've been in it, I'm just so blown out that the crime is never the issue. It's everything that happened way in the back.
Yeah.
So I totally buy into that. And I'm not a shrink. I'm not a pastor. Don't got a counseling license. I'm just telling you my observation.
Right.
Listen, this whole thing of abuse, I don't understand why people want to beat up on little kids. Why?
Yeah. Well, back in those days, I mean, I hear 1,000 stories back in the day that I grew up. It wasn't abuse back then. It was discipline.
Well, listen, I got disciplined for doing bad things, but I just didn't get abused.
Yeah, my dad used to actually hit me on top of the head with a big fat stick that sometimes would almost knock me out. So, I mean, this just went on and on and on daily like this.
Well,
so.
it could have been the Catholic nuns, because they came with their 3-quartered architectural ruler across the. I want you to know I had my share.
Right.
So, but then you started to work at a junkyard. Your older brother.
My brother did. My older brother did. We moved to Grand Junction, Colorado from Washington, and then we moved out there. And I remember my older brother would come to me and go, "Hey, we're leaving. We're gonna run away." And I'm like, he's a year older than me, so we were probably 14. I was 14. He was probably 15, and he would wake me up. He started working at a junkyard. The owner of the junkyard gave him a motorcycle, and he parked it at the house. My dad wouldn't let him work on it because he didn't want it to run. But every time my dad would leave, my older brother would go out there and work on it. So, and my older brother would tell me, "Hey, I've been talking to Mom. She's in Barstow, California, and we're going to run away on this motorcycle, but I'm just trying to get it running good and trying to get some money in my pocket. My boss is going to give me money, and then we're going to leave." Now, mind you, we're in Grand Junction, Colorado, so it's freezing. And when we leave, it's wintertime. And he wakes me up 2 o'clock in the morning and says, "Hey, ready? We're going. Come on." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So he gives me a mask and some gloves, and we get on this motorcycle and go. So
in the middle of winter.
In the middle of winter.
Where do you have weather clothes?
Yeah, at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Do you have
no winter clothes? No.
Yeah, I mean, it's pathetic how it's better to run away with hardly any clothes in winter than to stay put in Colorado with abusive parents. Listen. Don't forget to check out BFF this Friday night at 5:30 for food and fellowship. Childcare is provided. 6:15 for some of the best sharing you've ever experienced. Everything you need to know, just hop out to their website, beyondfeartofreedom.org, to join their subscribe tribe, figure out where this place is, the church that they go to, and all the other events that they have, and they have a lot. So until next time, I'm Steve Savant. And remember, no one's outside the reach of God. No, not one.